Howdy YouTube, app-driven guy. This video is in response to a video I saw recently that I really felt strongly about. It was called Uber versus Lyft, which is number one. It's by a simple driver, Calvin. And Calvin, I hope you get to see this video sometime in response to it. So basically, this is a really well done video. I think Calvin, I think your videos are amazing, really helpful. This one in particular, you're basically saying, you know, no way to Lyft, not even worth your time. You're doing Uber exclusively. Respect that. I think that's great. The information you give there is really good as far as the consistency and market share that Uber has. I just want to come at it from a little bit of a different perspective and a little bit different angle. My market is Portland, Oregon, a little far off from Atlanta where Calvin's at. So I think there's a lot of differences there, but I just want to give some different perspective. So first off, the first point you made was with tips. So when it comes to the tips with Lyft, you know, they're all digital footprint tips, but it's more. I mean, I got $100 in tips last week on 75 rides. That was in my printout, you know, my weekly summary, $100 in tips on 75 rides. And I got probably $50 in tips on top of that, just in cash tips, because people tip a ton in cash, like bar rush times. I was getting massive tips over the weekend. And with Uber, you know, I get tips on there too. I run dual platform. In the video, Calvin says, hell no, only Uber. I say, hell yeah, run both. It's the best for me. So in my market, I made, roughly after gas, I made $1,400 doing Uber and Lyft over a period of 60 hours. Okay, that was my time. It was about $23 an hour, 75 rides to do that. So I made about $15 per ride. When I did the math on your numbers, Calvin, you're looking at $27 an hour, obviously higher than mine. That's about $3 more per hour that you were out there averaging. That's including, I gave you $100 for for your tips, and took out the gas money as well. So both of these numbers are after gas with tips included. And then you were looking at $11 per ride through Uber. So that's the big difference right there. We're looking at $11 per ride with what you were, you know, with what your screenshot was. These are just going off a screenshot, not to get too big into those numbers. My big point is that I make about 50% more per ride with Lyft for every ride I take. So I'm making close, you know, 15 bucks a ride, where yours is 11. But that's including some Uber rides as well. So that kind of, I only take Uber rides if they're a 1.5 surge, or if I'm getting paid a boost, which, you know, it's kind of small in my area. I saw on the payout on your screen, you're looking at like a 1.8 boost. That's really good. So, you know, in my market, a 1.2 boost is all you can really hope for with Uber. So that's another reason it's hard to make money with Uber in my market. So that's all well and good. The earnings, I think you're making more overall. I can see that, but I feel like I'm driving a lot less miles and doing it in a lot less rides. So basically, you know, that's what we're looking at there. Now, as far as internet results, you know, Calvin was making a point that if you're gonna go and make an internet business, why would you do it with Lyft at all? Because Uber is such a bigger company with a lot more search results. And I agree. But the big thing is, Uber got an investment from Google for $258 million back in 2013. So of course they're going to be the biggest presence on Google. And of course, you know, when you flip on Google Maps, it's going to suggest that you take Uber as one of your forms of transportation. So Uber's definitely got, you know, in bed with these corporations. And they did it with another huge Chinese corporation that's a mapping system there, Budai. They invested, you know, 1.2 billion in Uber. So Uber's had some really huge investments. And see, that's where the next point is, that Uber has become basically like the generic term for rideshare. I mean, it's such a big name that it's just like what people call rideshare. A lot of times when people are in a Lyft, they're going, hey, I'm in an Uber heading over to you right now. Okay, so it is a bigger term. Like you said in your video, you know, a lot of rappers are using the term Uber in their rap songs, but I think that's more of just a cultural thing, plus the fact that Uber's been around longer and Uber rhymes with more things. I really don't think it's meant to make Uber look cool over Lyft. In your video, you say that Lyft is using celebrities now, and paying celebrities to do, to sponsor their product, which is great for Lyft to do. Like you said, it really does a lot for recognition. And Lyft is still, Lyft is in that growing phase where they're taking the investment money they've gotten and putting it into investments such as celebrity endorsements to grow their product. So also what you're going into the app showing, Uber is such better money for the driver because they always have these huge surges going on where there's nothing going on with Lyft. And you got to realize that that's not helping build a customer base for Uber. I mean, that's basically taking the customer base that's already there and agitating them because every time they turn on their app, they're going to have a surge fee. And the reason you don't see it for Lyft, the reason there's no surge is not because there's not demand. It's because there's so many drivers on Lyft that they can cover all the rides. If you look at the Lyft Rider app, there is tons of Lyft drivers on the road all the time because they're making more per ride, so they want to be on Lyft. It might be different in different areas, but that's how it is here in Portland, Oregon. I turn on the Lyft Rider app, and there's twice as many Lyft drivers on the road all the time, which means no prime time for the customer. So, I mean, I know it's good for making money to have prime time orders all the time, or to have surge rides all the time, but it's not good for the riders. It just makes them want to switch apps. And that's what a lot of riders do, is they see that surge, and they just say, hey, I thought about trying Lyft. I'm going to switch over. And they start using Lyft, especially with, Lyft drivers giving out $5 off a 10 ride promotion, on half of the rides when they drop off. And surge is really confusing for the riders right now because they go on their app and the surge fee is just, it doesn't even show the surge multiplier anymore in my market. It just says your minimum fare is going to cost this much, and then you have to click on it to actually get the per mile charge. So there's also a big thing going on with Uber, where they're kind of hiding money. The Rideshare report is one on YouTube you can look up. The Rideshare guy also has gone in and been studying rides, rider app versus driver app, and how much is being charged per ride. And after the booking fee, after the minimum fee, money per mile and minute, there's still like $1.60 missing on every ride that's going to Uber that they're not talking about. And that's based on a 10-mile ride. You can look into that. I just think that the reason I bring all these things up is because I think so many riders are getting upset with Uber, and they've been so fed up with Uber for so long that they're switching over to Lyft. And in my market, that's why you see this phenomena where Lyft drivers are getting paid way more base. I get 15% to 20% more on every Lyft ride no matter what because they charge more. And then they're giving riders promotions so that they'll go onto the Lyft app and use the app. And then also I get a 20% power driver bonus. And that's why I'm able to only take, 75 rides with Lyft to make, over $1,200. It's just, for me, it's a no-brainer. Like, I don't mind driving less and making a little bit less per hour because I'm spending less time driving around and I'm spending less on my gas to make a little bit less money. And I've only been doing it for 3 months. Every day that I work, every week I work, I'm making more per hour, and I'm sticking with Lyft primarily. So I definitely, the point of making this video isn't to like argue or try to say that Lyft is better. I just think that people right now are voting with their phone, and they're deciding the direction they want rideshare to go in. And I think every time someone switches over to Lyft and uses Lyft instead and sticks with Lyft, they're voting against, big business, because that's what they kind of feel with Uber. It's like, it's big business. It's embedded with Google and with these big business companies. Like you said, the Fortune 500 companies are providing all these free rides, but that's because Uber has gone out and gone after these big companies in order to secure that business community, where Lyft is a little more community focused and, just rider focused, and it really trickles down. I think people, the drivers and riders, it's our, duty to kind of help rideshare grow responsibly and to keep Uber and Lyft honest, to keep these companies honest by going with who is going to treat us better. And I feel like a lot of riders I talk to, I never have, not once, an Uber rider get in my car and initiate a conversation about Uber and Lyft and say, oh yeah, Uber's way better. I stick with Uber because they're great. You know, I've never had that, ever. You said in your video, a lot of people in your area love Uber, you know, but in mine, when people get in that use Lyft and they initiate that conversation, which is better, Lyft or Uber, I'm like, well, you know, Lyft typically pays better. And they're just immediately, they're like, yeah, Lyft is way better. I agree. It's so much better. I've had such a better experience. And I get that conversation like 3 times a day. It's not just an isolated incident. People are constantly telling me how much better Lyft is, how they had these bad experiences with Uber and they don't want to use it anymore. So that's my market. That's my perspective. You know, I'm just kind of throwing it out there that it's not the same in every market. You know, that it's different all across the board. But here in Portland, Oregon, Lyft has taken a huge share. And like I said, you know, it's just trying to keep these companies honest. And I honestly believe that the dialogue we're able to have here through YouTube is amazing, because we're able to share ideas and different things. And I hope this video was done respectfully for you. If you watch Calvin, and for those out there, I hope that you get some information, insider information, as to how Uber and Lyft operate and compete with each other. And I hope that's good for you. Have a good day.